Let me ask you a dangerous question. How many of the things you believe right now could you actually prove? Not repeat, not defend, not quote from a book, not tell me somebody else said, actually prove. Because history shows us something very strange about humans. We don't just hold beliefs, we become them. And once our identity becomes attached to a belief, questioning that belief begins to feel like an attack on ourselves. But is that natural, or is it something we learned? Throughout history, many religious groups have sincerely believed that if the entire world just accepted their faith, humanity would finally experience peace, morality, justice, and spiritual fulfillment. The Christian often believes the world would be transformed if everyone just followed Christ. The Muslim often believes the world would flourish if everyone submitted to the will of God as taught through Islam. The Jew may believe humanity would benefit from embracing the wisdom and commandments revealed by God. The Hindu may see humanity's problems as rooted in spiritual ignorance and believe greater understanding of Dharma would elevate the world. The Buddhists may view suffering as the result of attachment and ignorance and believe that widespread adoption of Buddhist principles would reduce human suffering. The pattern is not unique to any one religion. It's a natural consequence of conviction. If a person genuinely believes they have discovered divine truth, it's understanding that they would want others to embrace it as well. After all, if you truly believe something will save people, enlighten people, or bring them closer to God, sharing it can seem like an act of love. The problem arises when people stop distinguishing between faith and certainty. A religious belief, no matter how deeply held, remains a belief until it can be demonstrated as truth. Yet many people begin to speak of their beliefs as though they are proven facts. They become so emotionally attached to their doctrines that questioning them is viewed not as an inquiry into truth, but as an attack on God, an attack on morality, or an attack on the community itself. At that point, the pursuit of truth often gives way to the defense of identity. When someone asks for evidence, difficult questions, or clarification, the conversation can quickly change. Instead of examining the claim, attention turns toward the person asking the question. They are labeled a skeptic, a doubter, an unbeliever, a heretic, someone whose heart is closed or your mind is closed, someone who just doesn't understand. The issue is no longer whether the belief is true. The issue becomes whether the person belongs to the group or not. This is where religious tribalism begins. Once a community becomes convinced that it possesses the exclusive truth necessary for humanity's salvation, expansion often becomes a sacred mission. Followers feel compelled to spread their faith, convert others, and increase the reach of their worldview. The motivation is often sincere. Most religious people are not trying to harm others. They genuinely believe they are helping. But when multiple religions each believe they possess the final truth, conflict naturally emerges. Each group believes it has the answer. Each group believes it is helping humanity. Each group believes its path leads to salvation, enlightenment, or divine favor. Yet these groups frequently disagree with one another on fundamental questions about God, creation, revelation, salvation, morality, and the nature of reality itself. History is filled with examples of religious communities competing for influence, converts, and cultural dominance. Sometimes these conflicts took the form of wars and persecutions. Other times they appeared as social pressure, political influence, missionary campaigns, public debates, or efforts to shape laws and institutions according to particular religious doctrines. The methods have varied, but the underlying assumption has often remained the same. If more people believe what we believe, the world would become a better place. What is fascinating is that virtually every major religion has at some point held this conviction, yet humanity remains divided. And this should cause us to pause and reflect. Perhaps the deeper challenge is learning how to distinguish between belief and truth. Belief can inspire, belief can motivate, belief can provide meaning, belief can build communities, but belief alone does not guarantee that something is true. Many sincere people can hold contradictory beliefs simultaneously. Sincerity does not determine truth. Numbers don't determine truth. Tradition don't determine truth. Popularity don't determine truth. Truth must stand on its own. And the only thing we should ever conclude on is truth, because truth is the only thing that will set us free. If every religion has the answer, why is the world so messed up and it's only getting worse? But there are more churches being built, more temples being built. There isn't a lack of religion, but there's a lack of humanity. And each generation is becoming more and more corrupted while the religious institutions are getting bigger and bigger. We've swapped truth for tradition. And in tradition, we accept doctrinal beliefs that we grew up with. And these things have shaped our identity. So that's why we don't want to detach from them. And this is why we can't be free as a people, because we rather have tradition versus truth. Tradition is the broad path. Truth is the narrow path. If the whole world trades truth for belief, what kind of reality will we build out of our different belief systems? Well, look around you and look at what we're building and what we have built. And that is nothing. You know why? Because you should never conclude on beliefs. Belief isn't something that should stop you. Belief is something that should start you on a journey to find truth. Belief isn't something you accept in replace of truth. I'll give you an example. If I believe that there's gold in my backyard under the ground, I can sit in my house and eat and get fat all day and never pick up a shovel and dig. And I can tell everyone that visit my house, hey man, you know I'm sitting on a gold mine. That will be me presenting my belief as a fact. If someone say, well, how do you know that? Do you have a metal detector? Have you dug under the ground and looked for this gold? If a person is more attached to the belief than they are about actually finding the gold, then anyone that inquire about what methods they're using to prove their belief will be treated a certain way. The person may say, well, you think I'm lying? You don't think I know about my house? It's my house. What, you don't believe me? So now it shifts to them, something being wrong with them versus something being wrong with me for sharing a belief that I did not prove. If I gain popularity and if I establish myself as the guy who lives on a gold mine and I sell books, I write articles, I get news interviews, and I'm making a lot of money because people saying, you know, this is the guy who we believe is living on a gold mine, then guess what? I would never want to go outside and dig in my backyard, because what if I don't find any gold? Then my belief is destroyed, and the power that I had gained was coming from my belief. People was interviewing me. I was writing books and selling them. And I was known as the guy who lives on a gold mine. So at that point, it ain't the gold mine that's making me wealthy. It's the belief that I live on a gold mine that's making me wealthy. And if I'm the type of guy that wants to gain wealth through pushing a belief, then I would never go in my backyard and dig in the ground, because there's a good chance I won't find gold. And there's a good chance the only thing that I would do is disprove my belief, which has empowered me. And this example explains where the world is at with religion. These belief systems have enriched a lot of families, a lot of institutions, a lot of power for people. And at this point, don't nobody want to go in the backyard and dig and see if the goal is really back there, because they've made trillions of dollars off you just believing that we live on a gold mine. This is why humility is so important in any spiritual journey. The humble seeker understands the difference between saying, this is what I believe and this is what I've proven. Those are not the same statement. One acknowledges faith. The other claims certainty. A person who genuinely loves truth should never fear questions. If something is true, honest investigation can only strengthen it. And the last people who should reject honest investigation are Bible thumpers, because the Bible literally tells them to prove all things. And when you prove something, you never conclude on, I believe. You conclude on, I know, because the beginning process is belief. I believe there's gold in my backyard. Once I go dig all of the ground up and see that there's no gold, it's no longer a belief. It's a fact. There's no gold. Or if I dig in the ground and I find gold, I won't say, hey, I believe there's gold back here. We're beyond belief now. It's a fact now. We've done the work. We've done the honest investigation. We listen to the Bible, prove all things, all things. That means your belief too. Who do you think you are? Once a person proves something, they no longer have a belief about that. Either what we believe was wrong or is right. What will come out the proof is facts, not belief. Belief starts the process. It starts the journey, but it should never be used to substitute for the truth, which is the end part of the journey. So I can't say I believe gold is in my backyard and get mad at everyone who don't believe me, because they shouldn't believe me if I haven't presented proof. And the burden of proof is on me. I can't tell the people, well, prove to me there's no gold in my backyard, because now they would have to go do my investigative job, and I'm the one made the claim. If you make a claim, guess what you got to do? Prove it. That's just the way life goes. If you don't want to prove your claim, guess what? Don't make it. You can't have an unproven claim and lash out at the people that ask for proof and call them a non-believer. Right? No one should just believe you. You should prove all things like the Bible said. So truth doesn't need protection from inquiry. Truth doesn't fear scrutiny. Truth doesn't depend on social acceptance. What often divides humanity is not truth itself, but our attachment to our interpretations of truth. The moment we become more committed to defending our religious identity than discovering what is actually true, we risk turning faith into tribalism and spirituality into competition. And the irony is that nearly every religion teaches some form of humility, self-examination, and the conquest of pride. Yet pride often becomes the very thing that prevents people from honestly examining their own beliefs. The ego wants to be right. The truth seeker wants to understand. The ego seeks victory. The truth seeker seeks clarity. The ego asks, how do I defend my doctrine? The truth seeker asks, how do I know this is true? Humanity doesn't suffer from a shortage of religions. It doesn't suffer from a shortage of doctrines, denominations, interpretations, teachers, scriptures, or traditions. What humanity often lacks is a willingness to place truth above pride, evidence above assumptions, and understanding above tribal loyalty. But when a person becomes devoted to truth itself, rather than merely defending a belief system, they become free to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even when it challenges their own assumptions. And if there's anything capable of unifying humanity, it's not the triumph of one group's belief over another's, but a shared commitment to seek what is true above all else. One of the greatest obstacles to discovering truth is not a lack of intelligence, education, or access to information. It's emotional attachment. Human beings have a remarkable ability to question ideas they disagree with, yet often struggle to question ideas they already accept. The moment a belief becomes part of a person's identity, it ceases to be merely an idea and becomes something that must be defended at all costs. This is where many people go wrong in their pursuit of knowledge. A belief is just not the same thing as a fact. A belief is something we think may be true. A fact is something that can be demonstrated to be true through evidence. The problem begins when people stop treating beliefs as tentative conclusions and start treating them as established truths without sufficient proof. Ideally, we should hold facts dearly and hold beliefs lightly. I like to say it this way. I'm not faithful to my beliefs. I'm only faithful to the truth. So facts should be cherished because they remain true regardless of who likes them or dislikes them. Beliefs, on the other hand, should always remain open to examination because they may be incomplete, misunderstood, or entirely wrong. A healthy thinker understands this distinction. They recognize that changing one's mind in the face of new evidence isn't weakness, but intellectual honesty. Unfortunately, many people become emotionally invested in their beliefs. Their beliefs become intertwined with their identity, their social circles, their reputation, and even their sense of self-worth. At that point, questioning the belief feels like a personal attack. A challenge to the idea is interpreted as a challenge to the individual. Once this happens, the search for truth often comes to an end. So if you look around you and you see a world in bondage, while we all know that the truth will set us free, it's because the world don't have truth. So what do we have? Belief, doctrines. And it's hard for us to let those things go. And that's why the world, in my opinion, it just isn't gonna be saved. Ego will always be the ruler of this world. And it ain't about saving the world, it's about saving your world. Because when the people around you is no longer asking, is this true? Instead, they're asking, how can I defend what I already believe? Notice the difference. A truth seeker follows evidence wherever it leads. A belief defender follows evidence only when it supports the conclusion they already want. This emotional attachment creates a dangerous cycle. Someone makes a claim, they confidently present that claim as truth. When asked for evidence, they discover they can't adequately support it. And rather than reevaluating the belief or the claim, they experience discomfort. Psychologists often refer to this as cognitive dissonance, the mental tension that occurs when our beliefs are confronted by conflicting information. This is happening all around us, even in the so-called conscious, woke, or conspiracy theory community. You have communities that founded themselves off honest investigation and searching for facts, but now they are crowded with a bunch of beliefs about petrified dragons, beliefs about mermaids, just a bunch of beliefs that we don't have the proof and evidence for, but people will defend these beliefs as if they're facts. So you will see this all around you, which made me say to myself, belief itself is a psychological operation. Belief is a mindset that we didn't naturally have. I think when we operate in belief, we're operating in the left brain and we're operating in our lower mind. The truth is out there and it will set us free, but we keep reaching these dead ends that are made out of belief. So whenever there's a grassroots investigation going on, for example, something like Tartaria, then the powers that be will combat that with something like mud fossil claims. So when people are discovering ancient advanced civilizations, people will say, you know what? This is not a statue that's carved by an advanced civilization. We believe this is a petrified giant. So belief is given more authority than what we can prove, which is that we can prove ancient people were more advanced than what history told us. So a lot of deception is going on, and a lot of people are emotionally attached to different beliefs. And I had to speak on that because there's a lot of people in non-religious communities who think they're so much better, but they have a lot of beliefs too that they're emotionally attached to. In fact, some of their beliefs are even worse than religious people, because it's easier for me to believe in Satan, the red dragon under the ground living in some fire pit, versus believing that there were dragons roaming the earth the size of entire continents. But in any case, who cares what I believe? Because I know people are going to argue about that, and it just shows that you're a victim of this psychological operation. A lot of people like to argue about what you believe versus what you don't believe. It's a waste of time because I'm more focused on what a person knows and what they can prove. And when you show people information that conflicts with their belief, at that point, the person faces a choice. They can either examine the evidence honestly and possibly revise their position, or they can protect their ego. Many chooses the latter. Why? Because admitting uncertainty can feel humiliating to someone whose identity has become attached to being right, rather than saying, perhaps I need to investigate this further. They begin searching for reasons to dismiss the challenge itself. The person asking for proof suddenly becomes the problem. Instead of addressing the question, they attack the questioner. Instead of providing evidence, they provide labels. You just don't understand. You're a hater. You're an agent. You're brainwashed. You're closed-minded. You're one of them. You're a non-believer. The conversation shifts away from evidence and toward tribalism. The issue is no longer whether the claim is true. The issue becomes whether someone belongs to the group. This is how belief systems often transform into social clubs. Membership is maintained not through evidence, but through agreement. Doubt becomes disloyalty. Questions become threats. Skepticism becomes betrayal. The irony is that if a belief is actually true, it should not fear examination. Truth does not require protection, and it can withstand scrutiny. Truth welcomes investigation. Truth survives questioning. In fact, the strongest truths become stronger under examination because evidence continues to support them. Falsehoods, however, often require emotional defenses. They require social pressure. They require shaming tactics. They require excuses for why proof cannot be produced. They require enemies to blame whenever contradictions appear. And this is why some communities spend more time policing disagreement than producing evidence. A person secure in truth says, let's examine the facts. A person insecure in belief says, let's examine your loyalty. The distinction is profound. Throughout history, nearly every major era embraced by humanity was once protected by emotional certainty. People have defended countless ideas with passion that later proved false. Entire societies have been convinced of things that were eventually overturned by evidence. The lesson is not that people are stupid. The lesson is that emotions can be stronger than reason when identity is involved. The ego hates uncertainty. The ego wants validation. The ego wants to be right. Truth, however, doesn't care about our ego. Reality doesn't adjust itself to accommodate our feelings. Nature does not alter its laws because we are emotionally invested in a particular conclusion. People who believe in miracles, people who believe in petrification processes that they can't reduplicate, people believing in mud fossils or whatever your belief is, nature isn't going to alter reality to support it. And you can't get mad at people for pointing out that your belief isn't in alignment with the laws of nature. Nature ain't going to alter its laws because we're emotionally invested in a particular conclusion. Something is either true or it isn't. regardless of how many people believe it. A mature thinker understands that being wrong isn't the enemy. Remaining wrong because of pride is the enemy. There should be no shame in saying, I don't know. I haven't proven that yet. That's currently my belief, not my conclusion. I could be mistaken. These statements demonstrate intellectual strength, not weakness. The strongest minds are often the most comfortable with uncertainty because they understand that certainty without evidence is merely confidence, not knowledge. The pursuit of truth requires a certain level of humility. It requires the willingness to place every belief on an examination table, including our favorite ones. It requires us to separate our identity from our conclusions so that challenging our mind doesn't feel like losing ourselves. When a person truly values truth above ego, they stop asking, how do I protect my belief? And start asking, what would prove me wrong? That single question separates the believer from the truth seeker. The believer seeks confirmation. The truth seeker seeks verification. The believer protects conclusions. The truth seeker follows evidence. The believer fears being wrong. The truth seeker fears remaining wrong. And in the end, truth is not discovered by those who cling most tightly to their beliefs. It's discovered by those willing to let go of beliefs that can't survive the weight of evidence. If you got people in your life attached to different beliefs and you've been trying to get through to them, share this video with them and see if it helps.